Hello, everyone joining us. We're going to take a few moments for everyone to kind of make their way into the Zoom or the YouTube link. So welcome to our mini STEM career showcase. We're going to have, I think it's going to be a lot of fun here. There should be a poll up on your screen asking you what STEM field interests you the most. So if you could type one of your favorite or click one of your favorites in there, and we'll kind of go over that in a little bit. We just want to just get a general idea of what people's interests are before we begin this. And that'll help us to plan future STEM showcases and other things like that. So just while we wait for people to join, make sure you click on that poll. All right, so we're going to leave that poll up for another like 30 seconds. Make sure you click your favorite: architecture, construction, design, biological and life sciences, computer science and technology, engineering, manufacturing, mathematics, media technology, healthcare, physical sciences, and if you're not sure yet, which is totally fine. All right, so hello everyone. Welcome to the Connecticut Science Center's first ever mini STEM career showcase. My name is Nate Gagnon. I'm going to be your host kind of for this event. And we are broadcasting to schools and different learning communities today in Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, Georgia, Ohio, and I've even heard California. We're reaching many of you over Zoom and also over YouTube. And I want to thank you all for joining us here today. So the STEM Career Showcase is something that we do at the Connecticut Science Center. Usually you would come to the Science Center and we would have different STEM career professionals spread out all over the place. And you'd be able to go up, ask them questions about their job. How did they get where they are? What do they think the most fun and exciting thing about their job is? And they get to show you a little bit of what they use at their job on a daily basis. And it's really cool and really fun. So we're hoping to bring some of that experience to you here today. With our mini STEM Career Showcase. And the mission of the STEM Career Showcase is really to highlight careers where these workers use their knowledge of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics to understand how the world works and how to solve problems. And these are jobs that someone that you may know has. These are careers that maybe you might have in the future. So today we're highlighting a lot of these STEM career opportunities right here in Connecticut, but these careers that you're going to hear about, they exist right in your own communities, and you can find them right wherever you're tuning in from too. So before we begin, we had a poll on the screen, and once I get results from that poll, I want to make sure that we can share with you. Oh, here they are right now. And it seems that most people who are tuning in, the STEM field that interests them the most is biological and life sciences. That's very, very cool. Very interesting stuff. Followed by computer science and technology, and then mathematics. And then I think it's great that we have results for every single one of these because STEM careers are a very huge and diverse field. Lots of careers involve science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And we're going to hear about a few of them here today. So joining us today are or actually, so I'm going to kind of just tell you what the guidelines for today are going to be. You guys are watching us, and we have a couple of panelists that are going to tell you about their careers. And even though you can't be at the museum with us, what we would like to do is have your participation. So while these people are presenting, if you have any questions at all about them or their careers or how they got there, want to make sure that you put them in the chat, either in the Zoom chat or the YouTube chat. And then at the end of the show, we're going to be able to pull all those together and we'll be able to ask them those questions at the end. So just so you know, that joining us today will be Michelle Cody, who is the Director of Launch and also an instructor of entrepreneurship at UConn School of Business. And also Robert Governale, who is a staff electrical engineer in transmission and distribution at Burns & McDonnell. Michael Tortora, the Director of Safety and Security for Connecticut Children's Medical Center, and Audrey Van de Castle, the manager of the Industry 4.0 Upskilling and Maker Initiatives. So what we're going to do is we're going to have each of these presenters share a little bit about themselves, their careers, and what led them to where they are. Make sure that you're putting in those questions in the chat while that happens. And also we're going to share the kind of the biographies of each of these people in the chat as well. There'll be a link to a PDF in there that'll tell you more about them. It's really, really awesome and interesting. Make sure you click that link if you can. And also beforehand, we sent out a link to a STEM career bingo sheet. So while you're watching, you can mark off anything that you hear or anything that's interesting that's on the sheet, and hopefully you'll get a bingo. Free square in the middle isn't totally free, but it's super easy. All you have to do is ask a question in the chat. And once you do that, circle it off and continue moving on with your bingo. So make sure you're playing along with that. And we'll probably send a link to that in the chat as well, so you can pull that up and follow along. So I think we're ready to hop on in. So first I want to introduce Michelle Cody, once again, the Director at Launch, as well as a teacher of entrepreneurship at UConn School of Business. Hello, Michelle. How are you?
Hey, Nate. Thanks so much for having me this morning.
Of course, of course. So what exactly is Launch, and what do you do there?
Yeah, so I really get to do really two fantastic jobs here in the city of Hartford, Connecticut. One of them is to lead an initiative called Launch, which is the development of a community of entrepreneurs here in the city of Hartford. And we'll talk about a little bit more about the different kind of areas of STEM and concentrations and focus that that we really try to promote through entrepreneurship here in Hartford. But my main role is to bring together lots of different stakeholders, our large companies, our higher education institutions, community groups, and then groups of upcoming entrepreneurs, middle and high school students, to try to get excited about where the opportunity is to apply technology to change our world for the better. And simultaneously to that, I also teach entrepreneurship at UConn School of Business. So I get to work with faculty and staff and students from across the entire university to try to bring new technology and new businesses to the marketplace.
Awesome, awesome. So could you just give a quick definition of what entrepreneurship is?
Yeah, so it's a big word, right? But being an entrepreneur just really means that you find an opportunity in the marketplace to introduce something new. And the most important part of being a successful entrepreneur is that you figure out a way for people to pay you for that product or service. So that is really what I am up to. I work with people in the medical field, in advanced manufacturing. I work with engineers. I work with all sorts of different types of businesses, lifestyle, retail businesses, restaurants. So anybody who's selling a product or a service can define themselves as an entrepreneur.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. So in what ways is STEM kind of linked in with Launch?
Yeah, so STEM is completely integral to everything that we do at Launch. The world is changing rapidly around us, right? So we're becoming more and more dependent on technology to help us live our lives in the way that we want to. Just think about the last 12 weeks and the vast change that we've had to make in terms of how we interact with one another and how we live our lives. I know our kids are super excited about wrapping up the school year, and it's been a big challenge to be able to move all of that online. So I'm very appreciative of everybody who's doing that now. But if we didn't have science, technology, engineering, and math, this type of interaction would be impossible, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we rely on everything from hardware, the equipment that we use to actually communicate with one another, to software that makes that possible. And so the work that we're doing in Hartford really focuses on three different types of STEM related fields. One is healthcare technology.
Mm-hmm.
Another is advanced manufacturing. So figuring out the way that we can produce things more rapidly with higher quality, with more precision. And I'm looking forward to Audrey talking more about that, because Stanley Black & Decker is one of our big partners in that initiative. And then the other thing that we are really focused on is changes in insurance. Hartford and Connecticut are big centers of insurance. And so that is, a way that we can make sure that we cover the risk that comes along with the things that we do every day, and that we're protected from that risk. And that requires a lot of understanding of data, understanding of the circumstances that people live their lives in, and communication with people in a very rapid and efficient way. So STEM runs through everything that we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Would you be able to maybe, I guess, kind of maybe tell the story of one of the entrepreneurs, and how maybe STEM has helped them with their product rollout?
Sure. So one of the entrepreneurs that I've had the pleasure of working with, both at the University of Connecticut and then in the larger sort of Hartford ecosystem, is a guy by the name of Armin Rad. He is developing a new way of trying to develop effective cancer treatments, right? So we all know people who are affected by cancer every single day. Unfortunately, it's a incredibly prolific disease in our society. And it's also a very unique disease, in that there's a lot of different things that can go wrong inside of the body that get labeled as cancer, right? There's lots of different types. They get classified by the places that they show up in our body. But actually what happens with cancer is that there's specific things. Even if two people have lung cancer, for instance, the cause of that lung cancer is going to be rapidly different, and who they are as a person is going to determine a different course of treatment that's better for one person versus the other, right? So the same treatment might not work as well across both patients. So what Armin and Encapsulate have done is they figured out a way, and this is so incredibly cool, to take a sample of an individual patient's tumor, extract it from the body when the doctor does a biopsy, put it on a disc, and put it into a machine that simulates the conditions inside of the human body. They chop up that piece of the tumor, and then they apply several different treatments at once to that piece of the tumor. And then the doctors can see which course of treatment is the most effective for that particular patient. So they don't have to waste time trying one thing, having it not work, having the cancer mutate, and then having to try something else. They can go with the most effective treatment right away, and increase the chances of patient survival, and also their comfort and the least side effects during their treatment. So really cool stuff.
That's really amazing. Yeah, I mean, certainly one of the big issues in our society today, definitely. So would you have any advice for maybe a student who is thinking of a STEM career, maybe wants to not only be in a STEM career but be a STEM entrepreneur?
Yeah, the people ask me how to become an entrepreneur all the time, right? And it's a long process, but it really just begins, I think, with curiosity. That is sort of the biggest common bond that entrepreneurs that I work with share. And that is they're constantly curious about why the world around us works in the way that it does. They're curious about how they can improve it and how they can make things better, why problems persist, and we constantly have to deal with them. And out of that curiosity, and with knowledge in a specific field, right, that they have dedicated themselves to really kind of figuring out, they come up with different potential solutions. And so the process of becoming an entrepreneur is trial and error. There is no secret formula to being able to say, okay, like I've got it. I'll have the magic solution that everybody's working with. It's experimentation, trial and error, and just determination. The most successful entrepreneurs that I have met have been people that are so passionate about solving a problem that they're willing to try over and over and over again with different types of solutions until they find something that actually both solves the problem, addresses the people who have that problem's needs effectively, and figure out a way to introduce it into the marketplace that multiple people are able to support. So that is kind of the best that I can do with just a couple of seconds of overview, but happy to talk with individuals who might want to explore that a little bit more.
Right. I mean, and that's kind of the mission of Launch, right? Is to take people with ideas and a little bit of gumption for entrepreneurship and get them out there and really, really in the best place to get their ideas to the marketplace, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we want to support individual entrepreneurs, but we're also about creating a community of entrepreneurship and innovation within Hartford, right? So the thing that I think that people don't anticipate with being an entrepreneur is that everybody thinks that they get to be their own boss and they get to do whatever they want to do, right? Which is true, but also that can feel very, very lonely when you're the only one who's really working on something and you're the only one that understands it from that perspective. It can feel lonely. So creating a community of people who are also in that same process is really, really important to help sustain energy and momentum. And we're also working with lots of people who have expertise in the fields that these entrepreneurs are trying to enter. So that's why the partnerships that we have with Hartford Healthcare, with Travelers, with the Hartford, Aetna, Cigna, Stanley Black & Decker are so incredibly important, because entrepreneurs need the perspective of the marketplace to help them figure out the solution that's going to fit in the right way. And they also need, they need students to be interns. We're super proud of the work that we're doing in placing both undergraduate and graduate students from around our community together with the entrepreneurs to help them grow faster. And they need one another. So that's really what Launch is in a nutshell, is building this community where people with fantastic ideas can get the support and resources that they need to be able to improve all of our lives.
That's awesome. That's really, really awesome. So, I mean, people watching now that, they may go to school and pursue this STEM career, and they can, work with someone who's really changing everything right now in a small organization, small entrepreneur. I think it's something like Launch Hartford. And that's really amazing to go like right from education to like, boom, everything's different. It's really awesome.
It is pretty cool. We're excited about it.
Is there anything else you would like to share about Launch Hartford, Michelle?
Just that if folks who are watching right now are interested in learning more, you can go to our website, launchandhartford.com. And we're on social media. I think there's a slide at the end of the presentation that kind of shows where you can connect with us. We're going to be launching a much more comprehensive website soon. So please feel free to get in touch with us through the website. And we're happy to talk about individual resources that might be helpful for each of you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michelle.
Of course. Thank you, Nate.
Up next, I would like to, and actually, if you have any lingering questions for Michelle, make sure you put them in the chat right now. Like I said before, we're collecting them all, and then we're going to ask them to the panel at the end. But up next, I'm very pleased to welcome Robert Governale, who is a staff electrical engineer in transmission and distribution at Burns and McDonnell. Hello, Robert. How are you?
I'm doing well. I do apologize for the curious monkey, curious George looking haircut in the basement backdrop, but this is the pandemic world we live in now. So
Yes, yes. We all are having fun haircut experiments at the moment.
correct.
So would you be able to explain a little bit about what you do at Burns McDonnell as an electrical engineer and
Sure.
what led you there?
Yeah. So like Nate said, I'm an electrical engineer. I work in the substation group as part of the transmission distribution team at Burns McDonnell. I did get my degree from the Fairfield University. I did see that as a question earlier. So I started with Burns and Mac as an intern, actually, in the summer of 2013. During those days, I did substation design. I would do protection and controls and also the physical design. So what is a substation? So if we go to slide 2, we'll give you a quick overview as to what we do. So the power grid is very complex, but this simplifies it pretty well. So the generation shown as A can be anything. It can be nuclear, coal-fired power. It can be green energy. We then put that into a power transformer and we raise the voltage really high and we shoot it over those T lines that you see on the side of the highways.
Mm-hmm.
Then it goes into that substation. Then from that substation, we lower the voltage and then shoot it to your home and businesses on the poles you see on the side of the roads and coming into your homes.
Mm-hmm.
So substations are very complex. They look very boring from the outside, I have to admit, but the engineering required to build and energize one is quite difficult. One misconception that it's only an electrical's job, but the truth is a substation requires civil engineers, structural engineers to design the structures and foundations. We use mechanical engineers as well as HVAC engineers in the design process. And those are just the engineers. There are countless other math and science-based professionals that go into the design of a substation. So if we go to slide 3, I'll show you the inside of a control house.
Oh.
So the inside of a control house is really the brains. This is what keeps everything safe. Those panels are really just computers mounted inside of them. So if you look behind the panel, which I don't have a photo of for you, it looks like behind your TV, but instead of a couple cables, it's thousands of cables. And it's thousands of connections that we have to design and get exactly correct, or it doesn't work. So it is a tremendous amount of work. And one other point, the yellow tray you see in the top is dedicated only for fiber optics. So we do use fiber optics for communications between substations. So quick little fact about substations, and it's pretty interesting, is when a tree hits a power line, that signal gets sent to those relays, and those relays send a signal to the circuit breaker in less than 0.05 seconds. So that's how fast this technology is working in the event of a fault on one of those transmission lines.
Wow,
so
that is
it's
really
impressive. So if we go to slide 4, this is a pretty cool power transformer like we showed 4, unfortunately. That's, I think, slide 1. I screwed up when I gave you the slides. Slide 4 is there it is, the big, ugly transformer. They are huge. They weigh a ton. They're filled with oil. And the interesting thing about this one is it was installed in 1908.
Whoa.
It's 112 years old, and I'm sad to say that we're going to be retiring it shortly. And one thing to notice, if you can see it, is actually installed on railroad tracks. I'm happy to say we don't use railroad tracks anymore. So one other thing, a couple of things actually I want to talk about. You know, lots changed. If we can go to slide 1 now. It's pretty interesting about what we do. So these are all the offices that my company has. You know, a lot has changed due to the coronavirus pandemic, but surprisingly little has changed for me. In our line of work, we work in small teams. I actually lead up a team that works for National Grid. The team started with myself and a young lady named Christine and has since grown to 30 plus people working in 8 different offices, and that's including Mumbai, India. Only 4 of my teammates work in my office, so using apps like Zoom and Microsoft Teams is nothing new to me. Without this tech, though, we would be completely and utterly lost and not at all able to do what we're doing now. So slide 5 is something cool I wanted to share with you guys. That right there.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So that is a brand new substation that we're currently building in Everett, Massachusetts. So the cool thing about this one is that we designed it in full 3D CAD. Full 3D, we can circle around the model, we can walk through the different elements of it. Not only did we design it in 3D, we completely printed it in 3D to scale. So all of that was designed and then printed inside of our office. And then we delivered it to the client, which was quite stressful to get a 3D model from Connecticut to Boston, but we successfully made it. So
That's really, really cool.
yeah. So some of the things that I like, what excites me about the work we do in the industry we work in, is that we work around the clock to make this electrical grid more robust. If any of you have ever experienced a power outage, you know just how frustrating that can be. And without what we do, outages would occur far more frequently. And our office is engaged in a lot of green energy. We now work on solar farms. We do offshore wind, which is awesome. We're designing car charging ports and for cities and states. It's pretty exciting to be doing, the green energy work that we're doing. And I did want to share a little secret with everyone on this call. I was not a great student in high school and in middle school. I did well, but not great. I was scared of math and science. I thought it was too hard for me. So when I made the decision to pursue engineering, it was to challenge myself. And I had times in college where I did not think I would make it. What I did was tell myself that all I had to do was survive that current semester, or that one class that was problematic, and then I would make a decision. I didn't look at the challenging courses I had to take down the road. I took them one by one, and everything I passed, whenever I passed a challenging course, it only made me more confident going into the next semester. So don't ever think that you can't become an engineer. Try hard, don't give up, and see it through, because it is an incredibly rewarding career. And I always stress this to young engineers: ask a lot of questions. Don't be afraid to ask what you perceive to be a stupid question. And I do that intentionally with young engineers because I want to know the answer too. And if I don't know the answer, then we're going to collectively go get the answer. So questions are incredibly important. Even if you have to meet a teacher after class to get that information, don't ever be afraid or ashamed to ask it. So one thing I do obviously want to touch on is STEM. It is quite important. At Burns & Mac, all of our regional offices are engaged with STEM. And some of actually my colleagues came out of STEM programs. I will say this to everybody on the phone: as challenging as my career is with designing substations and managing 8 different offices and teams, the hardest part of my job is actually finding engineers. It's finding the talent that we need. We have more work than the people to do it. So we really need the young and bright people on this call to join us, because we're really waiting for you and we need you. So Nate, I'm sorry, I kind of rambled there. I have a tendency to do
No,
that.
that was absolutely amazing. I'll tell you, I was listening to you, and those are all really great things. And I was filling out my bingo sheet because you checked off a bunch of them. So hopefully people following along
Nice.
have been able to get not only get some bingo things, but some really, really great advice from you. I did see one chat question pop up, and it's interesting to me. So I would like to ask it. And I think we're going to switch our slides over now. Would be a moment for us to stop sharing the screen. But so Robert, that old transformer that was on railroad track, is that being moved out because it's outdated technology, or is it broken, or is it just an upgraded system? Or
No, the technology of transformers hasn't advanced tremendously since 1908, truthfully. It's being retired only simply because we're expanding upon the substation and we need to make space for the new equipment.
Okay.
So it's not because it's not working. Some of the best transformers I've seen are the ones that are 100 years old. They just seem to work better.
Sure. Yeah. Awesome. Are there any last things you'd like to share, Robert?
No, I'm totally encouraged by this. I now that I'm in the hiring part of my career, I'm more interested in STEM because I see the need for it. And I have young children, including a young girl upstairs, and it's going to be something that's going to be part of this household because it's something this country needs, and I think it benefits a lot of us. So I'm happy to be part of this.
Yeah, and I mean, it's very clear that everyone who's watching right now is using electricity.
That's true.
So
I do like to point that out to my wife. I do something important around the house.
Yeah. So everyone, this is, if you're not right here in Connecticut, this is a job and a career that literally exists all around the world.
Correct.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Robert.
Thank you.
And now we are going to move to Michael Tortora, who is the Director of Safety and Security for the Connecticut Children's Medical Center. Welcome, Michael. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here and honored to talk to everybody. Really, really excited. So I'd like to, if you want to go to the next slide, I can start my.
Wonderful, yeah.
So I thought I would give you guys a kind of a journey here on where my career has gone and my schooling has been through the years and how I got to where I am now. So right now, my job is I'm the Director of Safety and Security at Connecticut Children's, and which is the only standalone children's hospital in Connecticut. And we not only serve Connecticut, we serve the region. So we have satellite locations and offices where we see patients out of the state, Massachusetts, New York, places like that. So we are growing at a huge rate. My job is to keep everyone safe. I'm tasked with running the safety programs at the hospital. There's a lot of compliance programs as well that we have to make sure that we are providing safe care and providing a safe environment for our team members, which is our staff. We call them team members, and patients and visitors. And and part of that job is managing the security staff. So our security staff is a dedicated bunch of individuals that keep us safe, keep our patients safe, so we can provide safe care for everybody, which is our main mission at Connecticut Children's. So to get to that point in my career where I am now, I was always interested in STEM. It was one of the things that got me to go to school every day. I loved learning about science, technology, engineering, mathematics. I loved studying physics and chemistry, and astronomy was a big thing. We actually had a planetarium at my high school.
Oh, wow.
And it was a great, phenomenal class that I could take with the astronomy director. And we actually put shows together, things like that. It was really fun. But it really introduced me to the world around me and how science really, piqued my interest. My field of study became meteorology, which is weather forecasting, and that involved lots of different areas of science, technology, engineering, and math. Particularly math. Meteorology is very heavy on dynamics, which is basically calculus, and it was physics calculus as well. And what Robert said resonates with me. There were a lot of times when I didn't think I'd get there, but I kept with it, got through the next semester, stayed after class, did the extra work, and I got through it. What I really liked about meteorology was the environmental science part and the air pollution management. And I actually did a study on sunlight and some other things in college, which really got me into the environmental science part of my career.
Awesome.
You can go to the next one. So being interested in environmental science, the meteorology degree really gave me a great background in science. So a lot of well-rounded material and math. And it taught me how to use technology to analyze the weather, but also analyze data, things like that. So I gravitated towards the environmental science, did some consulting work. And then through my consulting work, I realized that really what I was doing was protecting people. I was protecting public health by protecting the environment. So I got interested in safety, and then gravitated a little bit more towards a field called environmental health and safety, or EHS. And that got me into the construction industry, where we did heavy bridge construction. We got into things like fall protection, keeping people safe from other hazards in the construction industry, which is a hazardous industry, but is doing a great job in keeping people safe. So they employ people like safety professionals to keep those tasks safe. Worked in public health as well. So worked for a town in Connecticut and did some health inspections, and then got into healthcare. And that really helped my career take off from a standpoint of giving me the opportunity to look at not just public health and safety, but also emergency management, which is keeping the hospital safe from things like disasters or emergencies, and then also running the security department. And every day I ask myself, how can I keep people safe? How can I keep them, help them do their job safer? So I really wanted to solidify my career, my aspirations of my career into occupational safety and health. So that's when I pursued a master's degree, and really got into the EHS field as my field. So that's kind of like my how I got to where I am now. So if you want to go to the next. So there's a picture of me right there in the operating room. I was not doing surgery, thankfully, for the hospital's sake. But I do go into the operating room to do inspections. I help the doctors stay safe, give safe care. And now with the pandemic that's happening, personal protective equipment is a big thing. So you can see masking, the head covers, and then also that suit that I have on, what they like to call a bunny suit, is what the doctors and nurses wear when they're in the operating room to keep the patients safe. And the goals of my career, my job every day are really to prevent people from getting injured. I want them to come to work and not have to worry about being safe, so they can keep their patients safe and deliver safe patient care. Because no one wants to come to work and get injured. Everybody wants to go home, not injured every day. And then also there's a business aspect to what I do. We are a business, a hospital, and we need to make sure that we manage our costs because we're a nonprofit. And part of that is injury prevention. So if we can help people stay safe, there's less injuries, and then people are more productive and safer. So you can go to the next slide. So STEM in my career, and I can show you really, like, if you look behind my virtual background here, and then that picture shows how we use technology every day in security. So this is a picture of our command center. And you can see up on those screens are all the cameras throughout the organization that we have to view, to keep places safe. We have over 200 cameras that we can view. We also do alarm monitoring. We do badge control. So if you have an ID badge, you need to get into a room and you have a little card and you swipe it and the door opens, we control that system. We also print all the ID badges for everybody in the organization, which is required for all hospital staff to have a badge. If you come into a hospital, you'd see that everybody has a badge. And we also do a lot of customer service as security staff as well. We try to make a great experience for everyone at the hospital when they come here. Other things from technology, like security technology is advancing faster than some other areas for technology. We can do things now in security, like we can track visitors. We can actually take temperatures with security technology now. So some of the things you might notice if you go into a building now, you might have to get your temperature tested. Well, we have cameras that can actually do that using infrared technology, which is pretty amazing. So it kind of speeds up the process. We also have a dispatch center that does our radio dispatch. Being in safety and health, part of what I do is I'm able to do air sampling for contaminants. So if you're in an area where we're using chemicals, there's occupational standards of your exposure limits, and we need to monitor those. So I use all kinds of industrial hygiene equipment to monitor and make sure that people are safe in their environments. It also, what I tell everybody, it's kind of the same message that we've been giving everyone is, if you really are interested in a certain field, you should really stick with it. And that's how I got to where I am in the environmental health and safety field. And it also, the bonus of this is that it develops leadership skills. So I'm able to lead a department of 40 individuals. A lot of them are security, but I have several other people that do other safety, security, and emergency management tasks. And it's been a great experience for me to develop my leadership skills over the years. And one of the best things that we get to do is we get to give back to the community. So the community gives us a lot. They give us, and even through this pandemic, they give us food donations for staff, and masks for staff and all kinds of personal protective equipment. It's amazing what the community does for us. They donate to us. We couldn't have a hospital without their donations. So in programs like this is a great way to give back to the community. So that's why I'm so happy to be here to talk to you guys, to let you know that, and share my career goals and my career aspirations with you all.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that is awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think it's great. So yeah, there are doctors and nurses keeping us safe, and then your role is to keep them safe, right?
Yes, that's our main mission in our department, is to keep the patients and families that come in here safe, but also keep doctors, nurses, and all the 3,000 employees that we have, team members that we have, safe, so they can give the best care and do the best work that they can possibly do.
That's really amazing. That's awesome. Any other things you would like to share?
No, I just I think kind of resonating with the other presenters have also said is, stick with it is a big thing. I think curiosity also, I think somebody mentioned, that's really what got me here. But the biggest thing is work, keep working at it and don't get discouraged. If you really want to do something, you can do it.
Yeah. And I think it's amazing. Your story is amazing because it shows that an interest in STEM, doesn't necessarily mean that the thing you learn about today is what you have to do for the rest of your life, right?
That's totally true.
The skills that you've learned and your curiosity really has pulled you, and you've used STEM the entire time, which is
absolutely
really, really awesome.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Michael.
Okay.
I definitely checked off a whole bunch more on this bingo sheet. Really great. Up next, I'd like to welcome Audrey Van de Castle, who's a manager of Industry 4.0 upskilling and maker initiatives at Stanley Black & Decker. Hi, Audrey. How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thank you for the introduction. So hey, everyone. Thanks for jumping onto the Zoom. If you could go to the next slide, I'm going to give you guys, all right, well, we'll work on the slides, but I'll let you guys know a little bit about what I do for Stanley Black & Decker. So Stanley Black & Decker is a very large tool company. We're actually the largest tools and storage company in the world. And we make a lot of different brands. So certainly we have the name Stanley and Black & Decker in our company name, but we also make other tools that you might be familiar with, DeWalt, Craftsman, Irwin, Lennox, and the list goes on and on and on. We also have a security and a healthcare division. So kind of ties in with some of what the rest of the panelists have been talking about today. And part of what my job is, perfect, great timing, is I have management of what's called our makerspace. And hopefully some of the people on the call know what a makerspace is. If you don't know what a makerspace is, it's essentially a big workshop space where our employees can come and use tools. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see some of the tools that we have in our makerspace. Woodworking, 3D printing, laser cutters, metalworking, welding. We've really got a whole bunch of different technology and tools in our makerspace. And what our employees use the makerspace for is to develop prototypes for new ideas, for new products. That's one of the uses. They also will come in to learn how to use our tools, because there's lots of people in our company. We have 60,000 employees around the world who maybe don't have an engineering or a STEM function within our company. Maybe they're in finance or they're in human resources. And honestly, I've met some people at our company that don't know how to use some of our tools. So the makerspace is a great place for our employees to come and use our actual products and get used to how to use them. And our employees are also able to work on personal projects there. So if you go to the next slide, I want to show some of the cool stuff that we've done in our makerspace. So we had a group of engineers who were really avid rocketeers. And I'm actually located in Maryland, and Maryland, the Rocket Club in Maryland used to have the Guinness World Record for the largest scale model rocket launch in the world. And then Australia took it from us. So we decided we're going to make a bigger rocket than what Australia made. And we designed and fabricated and fully launched and got a Guinness World Record for the largest scale model rocket launch ever. So we made a 3/4 scale rocket. Now, normally when you see a rocket, it's, a 30th scale, it's a couple feet long, maybe. Well, our rocket was 64 feet tall. And we made our own rocket fuel, and we got NASA and FAA clearance, and we actually launched our rocket. So you can see some pictures here. This is before the rocket got painted, but we made this entirely in our makerspace, in our free time, essentially, and we launched it. It actually worked, and it even broke apart once it got up into the air. And if you're interested in seeing some more, if you go on YouTube and look up Redstone rocket launch, you'll probably be able to find some videos on there that are pretty popular that show the actual launch of this rocket. Just one of the cool things that I get to do in my day-to-day job. And one of the things I really like about it is that every day is different because I get to work on cool and crazy kooky projects like this. And if you could go to the next slide, another cool project that we did in our makerspace was a hackathon called Make 48, where we had students from a variety of colleges come for 48 straight hours in our makerspace. At the start of the 48 hours, they were given a challenge, and at the end of the 48 hours, they had to have designed and fabricated a prototype that was an answer to that challenge. So the challenge for our Make 48 session was something that can help people during natural disasters. So we had a really broad topic, and then people were able to iterate and design and engineer different types of solutions for different types of natural disasters. And at the end of it, the winner actually got a licensing deal to actually produce and manufacture their product with a company.
Wow.
So that was a really cool thing that we were able to do in our space as well. And if you go to the next slide, I'll show you some of the design work that we do in our space too. So like I said, DeWalt is one of our brands, and we've got these big lights that they're construction lights, right? They're made for a construction site. It's dark. There's maybe no electricity yet, right? Robert's team hasn't gotten there with the power lines yet. So people need some battery operated lights. So what we were able to do was, for an event here in Maryland, we made a big display. And if you go to the next slide, you should be able to see a video of that actually installed. So we designed these stands, and we actually hacked into our own products and edited their software a little bit so that instead of just being a solid light, the light would actually blink and glow kind of organically. And it was a pretty cool installation for us to do, and just a cool, fun project to work on. Another cool thing that I get to do in my job is work on robots. So a lot of my Industry 4.0 side of my job deals with robots, but I also get to do some fun stuff with robots. I don't know if anyone on the call is maybe familiar with the show BattleBots.
Mm-hmm.
If you could go to the next slide, I actually was part of a BattleBots team that was on our last season. We were supposed to be on a season that was supposed to be getting recorded basically right now, but unfortunately the pandemic happened. But our BattleBot is named Mammoth. So it's actually the largest BattleBot in show history. It's a little over 6 feet tall, and it weighs about 250 pounds. And it can also flip a car. So it's pretty awesome. And I actually got to weld that whole frame together. So if you go to the next slide, I've got a video in there if you can get it to play. This is a clip of arguably our best performance of the show, where we got to actually knock one of our opponents out of the ring. So you can view it on YouTube if we can't get the video to work here today. But if you look up Mammoth BattleBot, you'll be able to find it. Yeah, that was pretty fun. We actually hooked that opponent. You can see the little green and red guy there. We hooked him with our big trunk spinner and grabbed him and threw him right out of the ring. So it was a lot of fun to be able to work on the design process of that and the fabrication process of that. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see a picture, and this is a video as well, of one of our manufacturing plants. So part of my title includes the term Industry 4.0. What does that mean? That's kind of a vague term, right? Well, when you're thinking about industry and manufacturing, there's lots of phases that it goes through, right? All the way back to water-powered textile mills in England in the 1700s, right? So there's these kind of periods of industry that are progression. The assembly line with Ford in the early 1900s really revolutionized manufacturing. The invention of computers and technology, again, really revolutionized manufacturing in the 60s and 70s, making stuff computerized and digital. And then Industry 4.0 is kind of that next wave of technology in our plants. So the task that this robotic arm is performing is a really repetitive and ergonomically challenging task for a human. So you can see the robot there is actually gripping a big steel bar, and that steel bar weighs maybe 40 pounds. So traditionally, before those robots were there, an operator would have to bend over, pick up this big heavy bar, and then put it into a machine. And that's a really repetitive task for someone to do all day, every day. So it was hard for us to find people to do this job, right? And so what my team did is they worked with a robotics company to develop a robot that would be able to perform that job. Now, some people might say, well, what about the person who would have that job otherwise? Does this eliminate jobs? It doesn't, because what it does is it opens new jobs for people who can build these robots, who can program these robots, who can troubleshoot these robots. So there's a whole new world in manufacturing that's not those traditional, dirty, dingy, dangerous manufacturing roles, but they're actually pretty cool and techy, and they're engineering and they're STEM heavy. So if you're really interested in robotics and engineering, I encourage you to look into manufacturing as a career field, because half of our workforce at Stanley, 30,000 employees, are in manufacturing. And that's a really big part of our business and a big part of lots of people's business. So there is a lot of jobs to be had in the manufacturing field, and they're all really cool and techy. So yeah, so that's just a little bit about what I do. I do lots of different stuff with my job. I interact with makers, and I interact with manufacturing. So I'm looking forward to hearing some of the questions from the rest of the attendees. And thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Audrey.
Yep.
So what we are going to do now is we're going to put another poll up on the screen. And while you guys answer that poll, everyone in the Zoom chat, we are going to collect all the questions that you've been putting into the chat. I know our panelists too have been here in Zoom have been responding to some of the questions. I think that's amazing and awesome that even while we're talking about it, we're still engaging and answering the questions that everyone's having. A lot of really cool questions are coming in. So just make sure that you answer this poll here. So what STEM field do you think is projected to grow the fastest by 2026 in CT? So this is a little more of a game show quiz we've got going on here. Do you think it's healthcare, computer science, manufacturing, or engineering? Okay. And I want to say thank you again to everyone who's joining in and watching here on Zoom, all the different schools and different learning communities, and also on YouTube. Thanks for adding all your questions in. Thanks for being engaged. And I think we're going to move to our panel section where we're going to take your questions, and we are going to ask Audrey, Michelle, Michael, and Robert all the wonderful things that you guys are curious about in a STEM career. Awesome. So Jack has a question. Jack's question is that if you are interested in STEM, but you're not sure exactly what career path you should take, is there a general place that any of you guys would recommend that someone starts?
Yeah, I think that if you are interested in STEM, that's a really great starting point. And I would encourage you to try something in each of those letters and see what really resonates with you. I think part of the way I found myself into my career was by following my passions and trying a bunch of different things. Don't be afraid or discouraged if you try something and you hate it. That just means you got to find something else to try. So go ahead and branch out and try a bunch of different things to see what you like. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah. And our poll that we had up, you guys chose that computers would maybe be the fastest growing field by 2026, and it is actually manufacturing. But that does not mean that computer science is a completely separate thing from manufacturing. There are elements of computer science in it, as we just saw with Audrey's presentation, with robotics and different things like that, and engineering as well. But manufacturing holds on to a lot of those. Another question we have here, Shane wants to know, which STEM jobs involve the most applications of math? And then in parentheses, he wants to know specifically about calculus. And I think I heard, Michael, you talk about calculus a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So going into the meteorology field, what we study is the atmosphere. So if you think about the atmosphere, you think about it does whatever it wants, right? So people say that weather forecasting is hard. The reason why it's hard is because it does whatever it wants. So what we try to apply in the meteorology dynamics fields called fluid dynamics or atmospheric dynamics or atmospheric physics. Basically, what that field of study tries to do, it tries to predict how the atmosphere or how the fluid, which would be air, works. So the way to do that is to use calculus equations, which calculus is a step above algebra in going into logical thinking, as well as, and some people can probably explain this a little bit better than I can. I was not great at this, but I got through it. And it's difficult, but it's one of those things that you have to persevere and get through. And you know, a lot of people do understand it really well, but it's hard work. And what it tries to do is predict, you know, how a fluid moves in a certain way, and then what other types of predictive models can come out of that. So when you hear weather forecasters talking about the models, the computer models, that's all they talk about now, about when to forecast. That's basically calculus equations that they're inputting data into that they already have. So that's what we learn in physics and calculus, is how to create those models.
Yeah.
So that's where the calculus comes in.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting that a lot of people might think of mathematics, especially as far as careers go, as just like the chalkboard or the graph paper, when really a lot of fields are applying that mathematics to something like the model for weather and things like that.
Correct.
Thank you so much. This question is for Michelle and Audrey. Macy wants to know, how has your experience been as a woman in STEM, and do you have any advice for women wanting to enter your particular fields? And we'll start with Michelle.
Okay, cool. So I addressed this briefly in the chat, but I really think that it's a fantastic question, because while women have more and more opportunities than our mothers and grandmothers ever did before us, it still can feel a little bit intimidating sometimes when I walk into a conference or a meeting room and I notice that I'm one of the only women that's in the room, right? And I've also felt this way when I feel like I'm much younger than many of the other people that are part of meetings or a part of decision-making processes, right? I tend to feel a little bit self-conscious and wonder if I belong. And the thing that I always have to keep in mind is that the reason that I'm in that room in the first place is because I have a perspective that's really important and really valuable. And my curiosity is just as great as anybody else's in that room. And so one of the things that I try to do and keep in mind is, rather than being defensive about the fact that I'm different, I try to really understand what people are talking about around me, what they're interested in, and add perspective that helps them understand what I bring to the table. And when I'm vocal in that way, in a really positive and constructive way, I get a lot of follow-up questions. I get asked for my opinion much more than if I were to stay quiet and keep to myself because I'm feeling self-conscious about being a woman in that situation. So know that you have important things to do. Be open to the people who are around you, and I think that that'll help make you feel a lot more comfortable as you move along. What do you think, Audrey?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I think it can certainly be challenging for anyone who is a minority, a woman or a person of color, to be in any of these STEM fields, because traditionally they are pretty masculine dominated. But I think that that's changing. And I think that with your generation, everyone who's watching, it'll be a lot different. And I think what's really important is, if you are passionate about a field, a STEM field, you're going to be able to find like-minded people. And no matter what field you go into, even if it's not STEM, there's always going to be some people that maybe aren't a fan of you. But what's really important is just being strong and persevering through it and staying true to yourself.
Awesome. That is great advice. Yeah. I want to get through as many questions as we can. I know we're running up towards the end, and I don't want to hold everyone too long. And of course, the reason you're here is because you all have careers and jobs and things that you have to get back to. So what would you say the most rewarding part of your work in STEM is? And actually, we'll have Robert. What do you think the most rewarding part of your job in STEM to you is? Oh, we're gonna unmute you.
Yep, I'm good. Most rewarding part for me is I'm a problem solver. So when I get to apply math and science to difficult projects, it's just incredibly rewarding. It can be as challenging as all heck, but when we take a problematic substation and we can get in and do the upgrades that we need to do and get out of them and apply those things that we've learned, that's really at the end of the day what I enjoy about it. So it's problem solving for me.
Yeah, definitely. And then in general, I just want to ask everyone, I mean, a lot of our lives have changed in these past few months with COVID-19. And I'm just curious how everyone's specific roles at their companies may have changed. I guess we'll start with Michael, because that's probably maybe the biggest change, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously at the hospitals, we were in when this all came down as a pandemic that was going to affect the United States. We went into preparation mode. So one of the major parts of my job is emergency preparedness. So we were able to activate our emergency preparedness plan, put together a COVID-19 preparedness plan fairly quickly, given the the background that everyone had in the organization for emergency preparedness. So even though I run the program, it's really a team effort with all of the clinical and non-clinical people, so all the doctors and nurses, as well as everybody else in the organization, to prepare the organization from all aspects for how the pandemic could affect the hospital. And one of the biggest things that we have done really well is acquire personal protective equipment, and it's been a struggle to get that. And but we've worked really hard to get that all what we need here at the hospital. So we went from basically going, chugging along, doing 2,000 visitors a day, 10,000 surgeries a year, to almost nothing fairly quickly, and shifting everything over to what's going to happen with COVID-19. Now, luckily, children were not affected as much as adults were, but we were actually put in positions to help the adults hospitals by giving them supplies and actually ramping up to take patients from theirs if we had to. So a lot of preparedness, and now we're in the reopening phase. So we're making it very, very safe for individuals to come back in the organization, do social distancing, and get the care that they need. And our clinics are all opening back up now, so I'm heavily involved in that preparation as well.
Yeah, that's great. Has anyone else had any specific? Well, actually, Audrey, one of the big things that I've been seeing on the news is rapid prototyping of different things, such as face masks and face shields. Were you guys involved in any of that, or?
Yeah, so we had a bunch of people around our company using 3D printers to print face shields, but one really cool initiative that Stanley did was we have a lot of really great battery technology. So we collaborated with Ford and 3M to actually create our batteries powered PAPRs, which are powered air purifying devices. If you've seen some pictures in the news of nurses and doctors wearing those big hoods with hoses coming out of the back, well, Ford developed one that actually used a fan from one of their seat heaters or coolers that goes into their car. And along with 3M and us at Stanley Black & Decker, we were able to provide 20-volt battery packs along with a connector so that those powered air purifiers could be totally cordless. So we've made, I think, tens of thousands of units of those so far through our Ford and 3M partners.
Awesome. And then just our final question. People are curious. A lot of them are high school students right now. So they're curious what everyone's favorite high school class was while they were in high school. Michelle, what was your favorite class?
I was much more of like a humanities person in high school than I was science and technology. So I found inspiration in history and English, but it was really kind of funny because a lot of the things that I found inspiration and in history were like problems that were sort of persistent over time. And I realized that the work that I can do is bringing that perspective, that communication expertise to people who are in STEM fields, to be able to actually translate their technology expertise into business models. So it's kind of funny that it wasn't STEM, but I love working with people who are STEM specialists.
And Robert, what was your favorite?
Mine was actually astronomy. I still actually carry on that love. That was a class that started that for me a little bit. I would say in college, not to jump away from the original question, it was physics, actually. I loved physics. And one thing I want to touch on what was said earlier, if you don't know what you really want with your STEM career, I would get a solid foundation in math, in particular algebra, because you can't really do calculus without that algebra, as I learned. So algebra as a base would be my suggestion for a starting point.
That's great advice. Yeah. Michael, what was your favorite class? I think you said it in your presentation, but
I did. Yeah, I talked about astronomy as well. So that was one of the things. But the reason why I liked it so much is because you could take all of those things that you learn in physics, chemistry, math, and kind of apply it, and you can actually see it in motion, which I thought was really interesting. So that's one of the reasons why I was interested in meteorology so much as well, because you can actually see things in motion. So I would give the same advice. I mean, get yourself well-rounded, and you can really springboard off of that.
Awesome. And Audrey, how about you?
Yeah, my favorite class in high school was art, believe it or not. And I actually studied art in college. So I'm living proof that you can get a job with an art degree after college.
That's great. I mean, and that's a big thing too now. It's not specifically STEM, but STEAM, right?
Yes.
If we're talking about an entrepreneur that Michelle might be working with, if their product doesn't look good, then it's not going to be as successful as if it did, right? So definitely applying and taking everything, in, as Michelle said, history and things like that, and putting it all together. We're people who learn from everything, and everything we learn goes into what we do. So it's really, really great. I want to thank Michelle, Robert, Michael, and Audrey for joining us here today and sharing their stories, their insight, and their inspiration. And also, we want to take a moment to thank the Cognizant and the Hartford for sponsoring the STEM Career Initiative, and then also Stanley Black & Decker and Launch as the presenting sponsors for this STEM Career Showcase and today's event. We just added to the Zoom chat the link to all the bios. I think we're also going to put a link to that BattleBots video, and should be going out to the YouTube as well. Thank you guys all so much for watching along, for chatting, and for asking questions. I hope you all got bingo like I did. We have a final poll question right here about maybe if you see yourself going to a STEM career into the future. And then also a link to a survey will be sent out. Thank you so much to everyone who watched. Thank you so much to the teachers and educators who are working with their students to try and get them to these STEM careers. And thank you so much to our panelists. Everyone have a wonderful, wonderful day. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you all.
Nate. You too.
Appreciate you having me.
Of course.
Thanks.
And the poll's in. Yes. 79%.
Right.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.